Hello there. This is Jen T. Grace, founder of Publish Your Purpose, and I am here for another book launch interview. And today I'm talking to Cathy Alfandre, who is the author of Breaking Free from a Malignant Manager. So, Cathy, share a little bit about who you are and what you do in the world, and then I want to ask you all sorts of good questions about your new book.
Okay. Thanks so much, Jen. And hello, anybody out there. So I am a career coach. I've been doing this work for over 20 years now. I work primarily with mid-career managers and executives. And people come to me when they're in transition typically. So people who are trying to get from one position to another, whether it's by their own choice or by necessity, say they've been laid off. Sometimes it's a simple job change. Sometimes it's a more significant career change. But I meet people wherever they are. So sometimes it's helping them figure out what is it that they want to do next. Other times it's how do I navigate this world of job search today? I haven't had to search for a job in a dozen years. I don't know what I don't know. I need support and help. Sometimes people come to me because they know what they want, but they need materials. So it might be a resume, LinkedIn profile, bio, that sort of thing. So I really enjoy meeting people, in whatever situation they're in and helping them make the transition, a positive transition from something to something else.
I like that. And I feel like to me, it's obvious how your book fits into this, but can you share just kind of a little bit, kind of like a high level about, what your book is about and kind of who the book is for?
Sure. Yeah. So just, by way of how I got into this, because I'm a coach and I'm helping people make transition, people will come to me and ask for support. And very quickly in the conversation, often, not all the time, but often it turns out that they're wanting to make a change because of a very difficult situation. And often the difficult situation is with their manager. And so I really wanted to kind of shine a light on this situation. Who the book is for is really anybody who is in the situation where their manager is making their life miserable, and that can look a lot of different kinds of ways. But I want to give them support. So the book shines a light on the problem for them, but also gives them strategies, ideas, specific tactics to how do you move forward? How do you deal with the situation if you're not able to quit, or how do you make a transition to something else successfully without creating more problems? And the book, in addition to being for people who are suffering in this situation, my hope also is that the book will be for people who support people in that situation. So anybody who's struggling, has friends, family members, maybe therapists, others who work with them who are supporting them through it. And so the strategies in the book are for those people as well, to help them kind of move forward.
I love that. And if we think about that, you've been doing this work for a while, what was that kind of turning point or catalyst, that moment when you're like, I really need to put this into the form of a book?
Yeah, I may have mentioned this to you once before. It sort of came to me in a flash. I had just a number of conversations kind of in a row with different clients in very different situations, but all of whom were contending with what I ended up calling a malignant manager. And I realized I have to shine a light on this situation. This is really a pervasive problem. And before I started doing this work, I was in consulting work. And so I knew from that work that there's tons and tons of books about how to be a great manager. And surely there are great managers out there. But there are a number of managers who aren't great. And there really aren't, I didn't see a lot of books about what do you do if you're in a situation where you have a terrible one. How do you navigate that? How do you survive? What can you specifically do? Some of the situations that I had faced were, like, I had one client who came to me and he was really being treated horrifically by his manager, and he was so stressed out that he lost 30 pounds over the course of just a few months. Like, he just couldn't eat. He was so upset. I had another client who came to me. It sounded like, she's like, I want to explore starting my own business. And then when we got into the conversation, it turned out that she actually really loves her work, but her confidence had been really reduced, and her words were reduced to rubble by her manager. I had another who was just working like 12, 14-hour days. And no matter what boundaries she tried to set, the expectation of the manager was, you're going to be available on the weekends. It was just, so there are all these different, the problem shows up in different ways. But there was this core thread that I just kept seeing over and over. And I was like, I gotta see what I can do to shine a light on this problem.
Yeah. Yeah. And we only met in October of 2023. I think that's what we figured out, right? It was 23 when you came to our event at the Mark Twain House. And that is just shy of 2 years ago. I mean, just a little longer than 2 years ago. And you went from, you had this flash, you need to get it written, you have it written, and now it's published. Like, it's like a very quick succession of kind of going through it, which I applaud you for, because you were a wonderful student. What I'm wondering is thinking about, like, because especially when it's like a flash, right? Like, it's just kind of like I have to do this. Like, there's that inspiration, like I have to do this. But in your book, you have the usage of quotes, like there's a ton of quotes throughout your book, because you're bringing in the words from the people that you're talking to. So, like, right now, as you're saying how it kind of manifests in different ways and people are in different kind of circumstances, how did you kind of decide what your structure of your book was going to be in order to actually bring in those quotes? Because I find, like, looking at it, I also wish when I was 27 and had the worst manager, what felt like on earth. I wish I had something like this. But even like now, where I do not have a manager. So, like, when I'm looking at this, though, like, it's so relatable, because you're like, oh, I totally see how that person must feel. So I think you did a really good job weaving it in. But I'm curious, like, the structure and like what was the origin for wanting to do it that way?
Yeah. Well, I knew that I wanted to do two things at a minimum with the book. One is I wanted to call attention to the different kinds of impacts. So, like, sometimes it's a health impact, sometimes it's a self-esteem impact, sometimes it's a family impact. They're bringing all their misery at work home. So I had just seen all these different kinds of impacts. I really wanted to feature that, so that people would feel, gosh, yeah, that's me. I'm not alone here. I'm having that problem too. And then I also knew that I wanted to focus on strategies, kind of what can you do if you're in this situation? Because it's not enough to call attention to the problem. You actually then have to feel like there's something you can do to make it better. And I had ideas, of course, and I work with my clients on figuring out strategies. But I wanted it to not just be my thoughts and my voice about, it's just, what does another coach say, but rather my thoughts as shown to me by my work with all these different clients over the years. So when it was clear that I was going to make an effort to write this book, which, by the way, I thought 2 years was a long time, but anyway, when it was clear to me that I was going to make an effort, I went back and I contacted a bunch of former clients, and I also reached out to kind of a broad base of my clients. And I conducted pretty lengthy interviews with more than 30 people. And then I had a number, like several dozen more shorter conversations with many people, and transcribed all of those conversations and took the points that they were making and interwove those throughout the book, so that a reader would get a sense of, okay, here's what Cathy thinks, but then also hear the voices of people who've been in this situation. Here's what they saw. Here's what they experienced. Here's the strategy that worked for them, so that when somebody is reading it, they feel seen by me, of course, but also that they realize, hey, I'm not alone here. There's so many people out there that have had this situation. And they also would, I hope, feel hope that, they're hearing from people who've been there, and most of them are people who've kind of gotten to the other side and they've gotten out of their horrible situation,
Mhm.
so that they can see like, oh, okay, other people have been there, and hopefully their voices will inspire the reader to feel like, okay, I can get to the other side too.
Yeah. And you know what I think, and I'm holding your book over here. What I also think it does well is that it makes it easier to kind of like, and it's not going to be super helpful for people to see exactly, but it makes it visually break. So that way,
Mhm.
like if you're reading something that you're kind of like sharing and explaining, your professional and expert opinion, and then it kind of gives you a moment to be like, okay, let me now like actually immerse myself in someone's experience that is actually proving, like sharing kind of the point that you're making. And also if someone wants to skip past the quote, they can absolutely just skip right past the quote. But it
Right.
gives like the eyes a visual rest from a design standpoint too. So I think that that also makes your book feel more accessible, because I know that that was one of the things that we had kind of talked about very, very early on, was just making sure that this felt like it was, something that pretty much anybody going through some kind of experience like this can kind of like pick up and get through,
Yeah.
versus something that is 300 or 400 pages perhaps, because I'm sure you have that much content that you could have shared, but selectively shared what made sense.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really interesting. Just two thoughts there. One is, so I naturally wanted to go back to my clients and former clients just to kind of get their voices woven into the book. But when we were in the process of writing this book, and I was working with you and others through the Getting Started for Authors program, it came out pretty clearly that stories are so powerful.
Mhm.
And so this was really the only way to get stories into this book, is to use actual people's stories. And so I think the having those little quotes woven through, and they're all anonymous, by the way, so you wouldn't know who, but you get the sense of people who've been through this, and you get the sense of, oh, this is people in all different kinds of functions and all different kinds of industries and all different kinds of levels, like all the way up to the executive level. So it's I think having the stories in there um, really adds. That was my takeaway from going through the writing process.
Mhm.
Um, and then just to your last point, I really did want to make it as accessible and easy as possible. Like, I didn't want this to be something where people are like, oh my gosh, I have to read 400 pages to figure out how to get out of my horrible situation. I wanted them to be able to pick it up and say, okay, yeah, that's me. That is the type of really horrific manager I have. And, oh, let me flip to this section on what I can do if I want to start making a move out of here. Or let me flip to this section if I want to try to figure out, I'm not ready to quit. What do I do? So I really wanted to make it as easy as possible to get to that. And also the tone of the book, my intention was to make it kind of conversational
Mhm.
and easy access, like not academic at all, because
Yeah.
I wanted people to just feel like I was talking to them,
Mhm.
and also to get a sense of how much I really care, because I really do. I mean, this is something that this issue, it pains me. When I talk to somebody who's in a situation like this, like my empathy meter goes,
Mhm.
off the charts. I just really want to help, and so I wanted to make it as easy as possible to do so.
Yeah. And is it fair to say that if somebody picks up this book, they read it, they're like, wow, Kathy gets me, she understands me, that this leads people into potentially hiring you as a coach directly? Is that, kind of an available option?
It's certainly an option, but I can't work with with everybody. And based on my conversations with folks since I started telling people I was writing this book, and since I
Mhm.
published it, almost everybody said, "Oh yeah, I have one of those," or "I had one of those," or "My
Mhm.
sister has one of those." Like, this is a big problem out there,
Yeah.
so there's no way I could possibly work with
Yeah.
everybody in this situation. So this was my hope, to reach lots more people than I could ever
Mhm.
work with independently.
Yeah.
That they would have access to some of the ideas that I've developed over the years, some of the solutions that I've come to
Mhm.
realize work, even if they never talk to me. So
Yeah.
absolutely, if somebody wanted to reach out to me, that would be great. But I hope it works even without that.
Yeah, and it was written and designed in a way to not have to contact you. Like that, was kind of a part of it too. And like if we think about, fast forward, like your book's freshly out, fast forward to, I don't know, 6 months, 12 months, some period of time from now, and the book is doing what you want it to do. Like, what are you hoping that someone is going to say to you as a result of having read it?
Well, a couple things, I guess. One is, and this is sort of whether they say it to me or not, I really hope that this concept of a malignant manager, not that it's like a novel concept, but just sort of like it's sort of a term that you can latch onto, that
Mhm.
that concept is sort of part of the conversation more out there.
Yeah.
Um, because I really want people to feel that they are not alone,
Mhm.
and that when they pick up this book or they hear about it, they'll realize, because many people in this situation, it gets really lonely fast, and they kind of withdraw into themselves, and they're like, "Oh, I'm suffering, and I don't know how to get out of this."
Yeah.
And so just to kind of open it up to, okay, malignant managers are unfortunately everywhere,
Mhm.
and I am not alone. Like that alone would
Yeah.
be an amazing thing for somebody to say, like, your book helped me feel like I'm suddenly helped me realize that I'm not alone.
Yeah.
Um, the other thing I hope they'll say is not every strategy was appropriate for me, but
Mhm.
I found several in this, as I look through the
Yeah.
myriad strategies you have, I found several that really stuck with me and worked for me and helped me kind of get through the situation that I was in, whether it was dealing with a manager but being unable to quit, or figuring out how to do that, like really tactically move through a process of looking for a new job and successfully
Mhm.
landing somewhere else, or being in an interview situation where they're trying to avoid landing in another bad situation in the future,
Yeah.
and finding resources in the book. If somebody said to me, "Oh, you gave me like 5 interview questions I could ask to help avoid being in
Yes.
a situation like this in the future," that would be phenomenal.
Yeah.
And then sort of maybe a side note, a la something I mentioned earlier in this conversation, like if somebody came to me and said, "I don't have this situation, but one of my clients does,
Mhm.
was able to use your book to help them, and so thank you for that," like, that would be amazing as well.
Yeah, that's where I think there's some real opportunity too, is people who might be, doing life coaching, or other people who are doing career coaching, being able to like use your book as like a way to help the client get themselves unstuck and then bring their problem right back to the person who sent them to your book to begin with. I think there's
Right.
something beautiful about that because, as you said, you're only one person, so you can't serve everybody. But there could be other career coaches now; they don't have to write the book because you have solutions there kind of already for them, and I think
Yeah.
that's really
Yeah,
exciting.
that would be amazing. Yeah, if other career coaches picked it up, or life coaches or therapists who,
Mhm.
because a lot of times people bring their work misery to the
Mhm.
therapeutic situation as well. Yeah, if some of those helpers could use the book as a tool among many in their toolbox, that would be fantastic.
Yeah, and your book is available directly through you and your website, so if someone is watching this and maybe they are a therapist and this is a common theme, which I cannot imagine that it is not, that they can kinda contact you and say, "Hey, I actually would like to buy 30 copies," and then you can kind of arrange some type of situation for someone who's buying more than just the 1 copy, so I think that's, just a really exciting kind of opportunity as well, that, like, you are selling them directly from your website, which always is my preference, is buy it from the author directly. Secondarily, go to bookshop, and then, there's other places beyond that, but, going directly to you, I think is the way to do it, because then now there's a bridge and a connection point, so if
I was
someone
just
maybe
gonna say
hasn't.
we could be connected. Yeah, that'd be fantastic.
Yeah, yeah, I love that. Are there any kind of, I don't know, final thoughts, things that, I have not asked you that you would like to, throw out into the ether?
Um, well, one thing about the publishing process, is it was just you mentioned it was the past 2 years. Again, felt long to me,
Didn't feel like it, yeah.
but the sort of key Kickstarter, if anybody out there is thinking about writing a book or has a book in mind or whatever, I had the idea about a year before I started the writing program with Publish Your Purpose, and I had written like a paragraph here, a paragraph there, a page there, but it just like I couldn't make the time
Mhm.
for it. I didn't make the time for it, and having a writing program like yours, where there are other people who are expecting you to turn in pages, and there's sort of a weekly cadence of working on it, that was the kick that I needed to really move this thing forward. And, accountability is real. And having, other people I was accountable to pushed me to write the pages and get my thoughts together and get organize the structure of the book and everything, all those difficulties, because I had the ideas but didn't have it put together. So just having that process was hugely valuable, and I recommend it constantly to other people that I speak with. So that's just one thought about the publishing process. And then in terms of the book itself, I really hope that it has a ripple effect. Like my dream is that it helps tons of people, and not only individuals who are, who come to me or who pick up the book, but as we talked about, other coaches, other people who then have access to other people, and that there's like a kind of an ongoing spread of this can be helpful to more and more people, because I think it's pretty clear that there's a problem. Again, not every manager is terrible. I've worked with many great managers, but there are unfortunately too many who aren't, and there are a lot of people who are suffering. And so my hope is that this will reach more and more of those people who are really struggling.
That is my hope too, because it's all kind of part of like your ripple effect and impact is like my ripple effect and impact, right? Like when I think about when I started this company, like I had already written my own books, and it's like, yeah, I can impact those people, but I could also impact other people who are doing the work of the impact by helping you actually get it written and published. And so like seeing your success just brings me joy, because it's like, all right, now collectively we're all making a bigger impact, because especially in situations like this. And, there's someone who left a question in the comments that I actually want to come up just to see if you have a moment to answer. And it says, malignant managers are incredibly harmful to individuals and teams and potential liabilities for the organization. Given this, why do HR and upper management often ignore this behavior? I think it's a good question.
It is a great question. I wish I knew all the reasons. I think one reason is that a lot of companies place much more value on results. So if that manager or leader is delivering, let's say, revenue or other, cost savings, something to the bottom line, or they are expanding into a new market, or whatever it is their sort of role is in the organization, if they're making headway on those goals, the organization will prioritize that goal and not prioritize how they get to that goal. And sometimes how you get to that goal is kind of bad. The manager will work their people to the bone, or scream at them, or create this sort of difficult culture. And many organizations, unfortunately, don't always care about that. And so they'll just focus on the bottom line. And if results look good, they'll ignore what's going on, culturally speaking. And then with respect to HR, I think they're kind of in a tough spot because they have a dual responsibility. Like they're responsible to the company and the company's goals and the company's strategy and helping reach that. And then they're also responsible to the employees. And I think often they're stuck in, where do they put their attention and loyalty? They also have to contend with sort of often a he said, she said kind of thing, so they get a complaint from an employee, but the manager has a different point of view, and they have to navigate that. And no matter what, even if they want to do, even if they recognize there's a problem and they want to do something, their hands are tied in terms of being able to do something swiftly, unless it's a really egregious failure, like, showing up drunk to work or something really horrible. They're unable to take action swiftly. So it's not that they're always trying to ignore the employee's need, but they often can't respond to it quickly enough.
Yeah. Yeah. I can see you having like a Q&A opportunity, like in the future, in 6 months, like anyone who read your book, come join Cathy for a Q&A, because I'm sure there's plenty of other questions, like the one we just shared.
What a fun idea. I like that.
Yeah, maybe you'll do it and I will join.
Okay.
Amazing. Oh, thank you so much, Cathy. I love this part of the process, especially when someone has worked with us through the writing and through the publishing, because sometimes we're working with people on just the publishing or just the writing. And so to have like that full circle feels good, because I feel like I have so much, like just a vested interest in seeing you cross the finish line, because I was there when you started at the start line. So
right, like one word written. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yes.
Really fun.
Yes. Thank you for helping me see it through. I'm grateful to you and the company for the support, because it's been great.
Well, thank you. I appreciate it. And for anyone who wants to purchase Cathy's book, as I said before, go to cathyalfandre.com or wherever you purchase books. If that's your preference, you can also go there as well. Thank you, Cathy. Hopefully I talk to you very soon.
Thanks so much, Jen. This was really great.
Thanks. Bye.